So we're happy to bring the Black storytellers here today. So my remarks and the county executive's remarks will be brief, but I'm really excited, to work for the county because we do make sure that we celebrate everybody and we make sure that no one feels left out, and that's what inclusion is all about, and that is our focus. You have diversity no matter what. When you have people, even if they all look the same, you still have diversity. The equity piece is something to work on, and so is the inclusion. I feel that we're keep moving in the right direction, and I owe a lot of that to our county executive. And I can't thank him enough for his unwavering support for everything that we do. And I'd like to, again, thank him and invite him up to say a few words.
Thank you, sir. Okay, thank you, David. I want to thank all of you for being here today. I want to thank everybody who's tuning in from home or work or wherever you are. Thank you for being part of our celebration today. I want to start, like I just said, by thanking David Scott for his leadership of our Department of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and making sure that throughout the year that we are including everyone who calls Monroe County home, and really enjoying all the celebrations that we can throughout the year. I want to thank the whole DEI team as well for all of their work. And I'd also like to acknowledge that we are joined by our county clerk, Jamie Romeo. There's Jamie. Thank you, Clerk Romeo, for joining us here as well. And I'm just looking to see if there's any of the other public officials who are here. But I want to thank you all for joining us as we celebrate Kwanzaa and its rich traditions and values. The story of Kwanzaa is one of renewed reflection, unity, and empowerment. Now, it first came about after 1965 Watts Rebellion, a series of racial protests in Los Angeles. Kwanzaa introduced shared values for African Americans across the country who celebrate the 7 principles. And the 7 principles are unity, self-determination, collective work and responsibility, cooperative economics, purpose, creativity, and faith. When we gather to celebrate Kwanzaa, it's important to remember that it isn't just a cultural celebration, but it's really a time to reflect, it's a time to recommit ourselves, and to ask ourselves how we can show up for one another and do better in the year ahead. The 7 principles feel very relevant today. In our community and across the United States, there is a sense that people have of uncertainty, fear, and there's a loss of trust in institutions that are meant to serve our community. Now, the principles of Kwanzaa give us a roadmap during these times of uncertainty. Unity reminds us that while our trust in institutions may be shaken, that the community around us is what holds us steady. Self-determination reminds us that we define ourselves and shape our own futures, and that true leadership is about working towards the betterment of everyone who calls our community home. Collective work and cooperative economics says that we cannot work alone. Our community is made stronger when we have residents, businesses, nonprofits, our local leaders coming together to share work and to share responsibilities. Purpose is the reason behind everything we do. It is the driving force that tells us to strive for a better world. In local government, that translates to ensuring that we restore that trust, we protect those who are most vulnerable, and we ensure that our policies are rooted in fairness and they're rooted in compassion. Creativity asks us to think about things a little differently and to see issues from many sides as possible before we take action and take everyone's collective input together. In faith, we must have faith in our community, our neighbors, each other, knowing that even in hard times, we can lean on each other. Now, these 7 principles provide us with a valuable roadmap for living, for governing, and for being a stronger Monroe County. So as we celebrate Kwanzaa this year, I hope that these principles will guide our paths not just through the holiday, but will be a guiding focus for us each and every day throughout the year, while understanding those in our community who are struggling. But we understand that through that struggle, that focus on those 7 principles will get us through any challenge that our community is facing. So with that, I want to thank you all for being a part of today's celebration. And I really want to thank the Black Storytelling League of Rochester for being with us today to share their storytelling and be part of this wonderful celebration. And I'll turn it back to David Scott. Thank you.
Okay, so right now we'd like to turn this over to the Black Storytelling League of Rochester to share information and the meaning of Kwanzaa and also a couple of performances. Thank you.
Peace be with you, God be with you, we welcome you, and Ashe means that you're in agreement with it. So throughout our performances, you might hear us say Ashe, and you respond Ashe. It's kind of like when you're at church and the pastor says something, and you say amen, or something similar. So I would start and introduce myself. My name is Gail Livingston. I've been with the Black Storytelling League of Rochester for many years, a retired educator, and storytelling helps me stay in touch with my children. And I still continue to teach stories, teach lessons through stories. I love to tell Anansi tales.
My name is Judith White. I'm a retiree from New York State Department of Labor, Division of Employment, and I enjoy telling stories too. Sort of tell a story, engage, uplift.
I'm Shirley Struthers, and I am a retiree from New York State as well. And I love history, so I tell stories to bring lessons and to throw in a little of our history along with it.
And I'm Robin Nola. I'm also a New York State employee retiree. I work for the New York State Department of Health. They used to be here on Main Street. I like telling stories, especially tall tales, because you lie. You get away
Frog in my throat. I'm Norm Struthers. I'm a retired educator from the Rochester City School District.
All right.
I've been telling stories for about all my life. But with this group just recently for the last 5 or 7 years. I like telling stories about animals, and animals that can talk, especially.
Ashe. And now, Norm, we're going to leave the floor to you so you can tell us a little bit about Kwanzaa and the symbols on that Kwanzaa paper.
We have one person we failed to introduce, and I'd like to have her introduce herself also.
I'm Adriana Santucci, and I've been teaching drumming for
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to open up and just, first of all, say Habari Gani. Today's principle is Ujamaa. So your response when I say Habari Gani is Ujamaa. Habari Gani. That's it. Say the principle at the end also. Okay, so you're learning Swahili, and you didn't even know it, did you? Part of Kwanzaa celebration is to greet one another with Habari Gani, which means, what is the good news? And the response would be the principle of the day and whatever other things that go along with that particular principle. Now, the county executive, he explained what Kwanzaa was all about, and from what I understand, he did a very good detail, so my job is over. Who knew? Anyways, with the celebrating of Kwanzaa, we always like to make sure that everyone is comfortable with the fact that it is not a religious holiday. It is a celebration of a culture. It is a celebration of history. It is a celebration of passing on good things, good thoughts for all involved. So let us think of good things, good thoughts, and the 7 principles that go along with the Kwanzaa celebration. Now we're going to have the official opening. Do we have the table? Yes. Let's explain a little bit about this first. Can you hear me from the mic? No? Okay. We'll do this. Okay, the table here is set with different symbols. If you take a look at the word Kwanzaa, there are 7 letters in that word Kwanzaa. The double A at the end of Kwanzaa means 7 principles. It stands for first fruits in Swahili. Now, fruits are a very important symbol at the Kwanzaa table. We always have to have fruits because that is the celebration. And any types of fruits that you may have in your household, be it bananas, mangoes, apples, oranges, local fruits, that is fine. But also remember that nuts are a fruit too. We also have some artifacts here, African artifacts, and that is also very important to have at the table, to recognize the fact that we are a creative and artistic group of people, and we like to show off our talents and do so in a very special way. The mat, the makeka, is also a part of the symbols at the table. On the mat would be the kinara, 7 candles representing the 7 principles. The corn, that represents the children in the family. 1 ear of corn for each child in the family. If you don't have any children, 1 ear will do because it's full of kernels, and maybe family will be coming with children soon. The plant is to represent the harvest, and the harvest and the land from which the African culture is celebrated on. That also is represented by the dirt. The gifts are zawadi, and the gifts should always be a gift that can be given to mainly children that will help to educate and to stimulate the African culture and Those gifts should be in the form of educational gifts like books, artistic materials that they can use, and no PlayStations, no of the other electronic games or electronic things, but trying to promote education. Now we're going to open up this Kwanzaa ceremony by lighting of the candles. And we're going to pretend we're going to light them because I'm not sure if that's allowed here in the building. So I'm thinking, I'm smarter than I look, okay? All right, the first candle will stand for the first principle, which is umoja. Umoja. That candle is always lit on the first day, and that's the candle that will stay lit throughout the rest of the week of celebrating. The second candle will go to the right. Let me go back to the colors in the candle, okay? The colors are red, black, and green. Black is for the cultural, skin tone of the people who celebrate the Kwanzaa celebration. Red is for the blood, and green is for the land, okay? So we first of all go from the middle candle, umoja, to the first candle, the red side, and we light that for the second day. And then we go to the green side for the third day, and then back to the red side for the fourth day, which is today. Ujamaa, Ujamaa. And then back and forth until all of the candles are lit on the 31st, or the 1st of January, okay? We're going to have now what is called the libation, which is a very sacred part, and my wife Shirley is going to conduct the libation. Okay? Do you want me to hold the mic for you?
And we do, as he said, we do the libation in honor of our ancestors. So our fathers and mothers, here. Our father and mothers came here. They lived here. They struggled and built here. For them that gave so much, we give in return. We will continue the work that they have done. We will always remember and honor our ancestors as long as the sun shines and the river flows. Ashe. For the people everywhere, I pour libation. For the ones that died in the Middle Passage, for the ones that died during enslavement, Ashe. I pour libation for the ones that suffered so we can stand here today. For the ones that are known and unknown, I pour libation.
Ashe.
For our youth, who represents the future and the promise for tomorrow, I pour libation.
Ashe.
Now, this part is part at the end that you can participate. We pour in a libation for our ancestors, the ones that we know that were here, and the ones have made a difference in Rochester and anywhere in the world. But also, when I say that you call names, you call the names of people that have made a difference in your life, people that have helped shape the person that you are, that you want to give credit for. So you call their name as after I call for Frederick Douglass, for Anna Murray Douglass, for Austin Stewart, for Mildred Johnson, for Connie Mitchell, all of those hard-working ancestors that have gone on to glory. Now you call out the names of people that you would like for us to pour libation for. Rose Hugs, yes, yes, yes. Because it's important that we remember our ancestors. It's even more important that we remember what they did and how they had an experience on our lives. And our children see this and learn this and will carry on what it is that we do here today, what it is that they did before. So I pour libation.
Ashe.
I pour libation for our Creator, for all the blessings that the Creator has given us, for all the wisdom that the Creator has bestowed upon us. I thank the Creator for this moment. I pour libation.
Ashe.
So now, we're going to do the harames, the 7 harames, because we are all in agreement. Okay? So, put your way up and say, Harambe, 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 Harambe. You count them? Harambe. Bay, Ashe.
And now the stories begin.
History is being told from different perspectives, but our perspective is left out. And there's an African proverb that says, until the lion tells his own story, the hunter will always be the hero. So we're going back in history to a time that might not have been so pleasant for some of us. Robin has a true story to tell. Robin knows.
Now, in our introduction, I said I like tall tales. But this story is a true story. It's not a tall tale. It's about how my mother's family came up here from Georgia. The name of the story is Trouble Comes to Georgia. Some people say that they could feel it in the air. Others say they felt like a chill coming up their spine. And still others just said they had a natural way of knowing. However they found out, whatever they knew, one thing was for sure, trouble came to Georgia. Now, we really don't know what happened, but some people said that 2 white men came to my grandfather's house and he threatened them. That's one story. Another story was that his son was messing around with white girls and the town was after them. And then another story, or later on when I was an adult, I had a cousin from Massachusetts. He said, you know, the true story is he shot a white man and killed him. I don't know. To this day, we don't know what the truth is. However, one thing we do know, my grandfather had to get out of town in a hurry. My mother was a little girl, not even old enough to go to school, but she remembered the uneasiness, the quiet calm in the fields, followed by low hymns and spirituals. She knew something was up. She said that night, a whole bunch of men came to the house, and they were plotting and planning and looking at maps. Later on, I found out these men were Prince Hall Masons, and Masons were kind of used to this kind of trouble, and they would help one another. So here we have the one principle: make your brothers and sisters' problems our problems. They've plotted a way for him to get out of town. And my mother said, she said they walked for weeks, not weeks, walked till they got to the next town, and my grandfather flagged down a Greyhound bus. And I was told that Greyhound drivers had to be Masons. So if you're a Mason, whether you were black or white, you could flag down a Greyhound bus or a Mason for any reason. Now, let me back up. My mother was only 4 years old, and my grandfather had 6 other kids, some of them old enough to read and write. So I always wondered why he took the 4-year-old with him, because he didn't know how to read and write. And my mother says, well, you know, my sister Aura was supposed to go, and she cussed up a fuss. She cried and carried on, and I felt so bad for Daddy. I said, Daddy, I'll go. So that's how she ended up going. So the Masons, my grandfather and my mother, creeped out in the middle of the night and walked to the edge of the woods. And behind the woods was a wagon hidden in the bushes. And they had to dig it out. And then there were 2 Masons that followed the wagon to a certain point and was sweeping the tracks behind the wagon. Okay. Now my grandfather, being a Mason, there was another incident that helped him because he was a Mason. When they got to around Pennsylvania, there was a rest stop, and everybody was taking a break. And my grandmother, 4 years old, went into the rest stop, where a lady in the bathroom, in the restroom, started a conversation with her. And she talked, and she talked, and she talked. My mother forgot where she was. And so when the bus driver started to pull off, my grandfather said, wait a minute, my daughter's still in the restroom. And the bus driver sent a lady into the restroom to get my mother out. Now my mother tells the story, and she says, you know, I think she was really trying to kidnap me. She was waiting for that bus to leave, so I'd have to go with her. But she was rescued again because my grandfather's connection to the Masons. Now, when I tell this story, I have to say this. These fraternal organizations, not just the Masons, the Knights of Pythias, the Knights of Columbus, there's a lot of them, but they were very supportive and helpful to black men in the South, especially when you will hang them for a real minor offense, or you went to jail because, I don't know, you stepped on a white man's foot by mistake or whatever. So they needed this support, and this is what really helped them and kept their courage up in times like these. So it's important to share that story also for that. So my grandfather, and my mother went to Leroy, New York. Now, when you think of the Great Migration and everybody moving up, you know, they went to Chicago, they went to New York City, they went to all of these places. My family went to Leroy, New York, and then settled in Mumford, Caledonia area. My mother graduated from Caledonia High School. The thing is that these Masons and this support down south, the support they got, pushed them through. That's how they got here. The Masons really did a lot. And other organizations too, not just the Masons. There's, like I said, there was the Knights of Pythias and a few others. I can't think of the names of them. But they helped. They helped bring people here. And my grandfather, eventually got a job in North Chili. And when he got his first paycheck, his cousin tells me he fell to the ground on his knees and he said, Lord, I don't know what I'm gonna do with all this money. He made much money as he making a whole month in Georgia. He made that in 1 week in New York. 1 week equaled a month's pay in Georgia. So it was really a big a big difference in Georgia. I don't need to tell you that, Georgia and New York. And a year later, my mother's mother, my grandmother, and the rest of my mother's siblings came up, and the entire family was united. But this is a perfect example of making our brothers and sisters' problems our problems and solving them together. Ashe.
Everybody talk to their family and know history and stuff. Keep those family stories going. I regret that when I talked to my grandmother, I was little and I wasn't really paying attention. I would give anything today to be able to talk to her and say, tell me about that once again. So keep those stories, those family stories alive. They're just as important as the stories about our heroes and sheroes. Coming up next, we have that young lady from that unique area. Oh, I'm sorry. My bad, as they say. We're going to go to Mrs. Shirley Struthers, who is going to tell us a story about a kingdom. Let's go.
You know, recently, my husband and I, we had an opportunity to go to Ghana. And so when I tell this story, I realize how you could come in contact with the king. Because each village has a king. And so we had the honor of meeting the king of this village, who gave us our names, different names, the names that we should have had and don't. But this story is about a king. Now, he was a king of this village, and he was thinking, he wanted to do something really nice for the people of his village. So he thought about it, and he thought about it, and then he said, I know, I'll give a feast. I'll have a big feast and invite everyone from the village. And I'm only going to ask one thing of them, to bring a jug of wine. That's not too much. Well, you know, it was his farmer, and he thought when he got there, when the runners came to tell him that you're invited to the king's palace for a feast, but you just have to bring some wine. He said, he looked at him, he said, I'm not bringing no wine. He told his wife, he said, why should we bring wine? The king got all the wine he needs. I'm not bringing it. His wife said, I really think that you should bring it. That's all I need you to bring. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to talk without the mic. My apologies. It's not on? Okay, yeah, sure, huh? Okay, I'm sorry. I don't know how much you heard, but the villagers were invited to this feast that the king had decided to have everyone come to. And he asked them to bring a jug of wine. Well, the farmer said he wasn't going to bring it because he thought that the king had enough wine, and why should they do that? He's the king. And his wife said, no, we got a week. I think you need to really think about this. And so he said, well, I'll think about it, but it's not something I want to do. I think the king should do it himself. And then about when it was time, the night of the feast, and the king had all this food. And the farmer, as he was getting dressed, and his wife said, did you change your mind about the food, about the jug of wine? He said, no, I didn't change my mind. I'm not going to do it. I'm not bringing any wine. He said, I got a plan. He said, now I'm going to put water in the jug. And then, because the king said, everybody is going to have to pour their wine into this huge jug. He said, nobody's going to know the difference. They won't know. So I'm going to bring some water. His wife, she said, I really don't think you should do that. Don't worry, I got this. I got this. So they go to the feast. Now, this wasn't just any feast, because they were dancing. And you know some of the food they were serving? Well, you know, when we went over to Ghana, one of the main dishes they loved was jolly rice. It's good. So they had that. And they love chicken, just like we love chicken here today. They love chicken, so they had chicken. And they had anything you could think of, they had it, because it was the king's palace. So, okay, so they go in there, and the farmer, he look at his wife. Okay, so he walk over, and he take that jug of wine, and he pour it into the big pitcher, the big jug, and he walks off. And he was having a good time, because you know how it is when you feel like you got away with something. And especially when you feel like you got away with something that's somebody that's important, you know. It's different when they're just regular folks like us. But when it's somebody important, then you be like, I told you. He go over to his wife, he said, I told you I'd get away with it. Okay. So the king, everybody was having fun, and they were eating and everything. So then the king, he came up and he told them, he said, stop. We will now have a toast. And so everybody said, okay. So then he said, get your jug, your glass, and we're going to dip in and we're going to drink a drink. Now, that's exactly what everybody went over, got their little cup, went over and was dipping. And see, when it was time to make the toast, everybody looked down. It was nothing but water. Everybody at the party had the same idea. They were trying to get away with something. Now, you know, now that goes along with the principle Ujima, collective work and responsibility. We are responsible for making sure that our community thrives, to do things to enhance our community. Because if everybody felt that way, we would be in trouble. We'd be drinking water, right? So I love that story because it tells a lesson, and it also has a little truth in it, in that it talks about our history, it talks about Africa and our culture and different customs that are done over there. So I thank you, Ashe.
Thank you, Shirley. That was a great story. Another African proverb is, the worst you can do to truth is to clothe it in lies you can't undo. And the people at that party, they couldn't undo the lie of what they did. Coming up next, we have Sister Eunice White, who will be telling a tale about some animals. We learn a lot from animals. So let's welcome Sister Eunice White.
Okay. I like to introduce myself as being from that unique area of South Carolina, the Low Country, where the Gullah and Geechee dialect is spoken with so much rhythm. The leaves on the trees shake differently in that part of the state than any other part of the state of South Carolina. So I was not like the Gullah folks said, I was not a Binya gal. I was a Cummy. I wasn't a Cummy, I Binya. So I'm always holding on to that Gullah dialect. I'm going to tell you a story about when the animals used to walk just like we did. They walked and talked and congregate with each other. Well, in this little village, there were all these animals, and they talked and had a good time just like human beings. They didn't have to work that hard. They had enough food, enough water, enough juice, enough fresh air, and some of them didn't even have to work. But one day, a kindly king came across from another land, across the mountain, and he came over to warn them of an impending drought. They just said, drought. Some of them never even heard that there was going to drought. But he said there will be a drought in this village soon. So he brought this tree, and he was going to plant this tree that could grow in any climate, whether it was raining or it was hot or what. It would produce delicious fruits. But one thing, it had a name, and you had to speak the name of that tree for the fruit to be produced. Well, some of them looked around and said, a drought? What is a drought? So that kind of king said, a drought is when everything is drying up. The rivers that you have flowing, all the vegetables that you're growing, everything will grow up. It would not even rain, and it will be a complete drought. Well, they weren't really listening that hard. They were just being polite. Well, whatever. We've always had a good time in our village. So that king planted that tree, and he told them, said, in order to get this tree to produce, you have to call its name. And the name was Uwangalima. Uwangalima. Well, they didn't pay any attention to that. And the king planted the tree, watered it, and he said, if you speak that name, you would have fruits all over the tree. So he headed back to his land across the mountains. And sure enough, after a few weeks or so, everything seemed to be drying up. The river wasn't flowing like it was supposed to. The leaves were getting a little dry. And they couldn't get as much vegetables or fruit as they were getting all the time. So the old lion, king of the jungle, he called a meeting. And he said, you remember that kindly king who came and planted that tree? Does anybody remember the name that we had to speak to the tree? Some of them, they couldn't even think of it. But old elephant said, I could remember everything. And he says, if we speak the name to the tree, it would bloom all these fruits. We would have so much we wouldn't know what to do with it. So then they said, what was the name? He just dropped his head, turned it from side to side, and said, I think someone sort of distracted me. I knew he said we had to speak to the tree, but I can't remember the name of it. So he said, look at the lion. So you're the king of the forest. You know everything. What did he say it was? The lion said, well, look, I have so much to do. I don't have time to be trying to pay attention to every little thing in the forest. Well, a few more days passed by, and it seemed as though everything was getting dry. The ground, everything, nothing was on the trees. No vegetable would grow, nothing. And the lion called another meeting. Said, we have to have someone to go to that kind king's village and ask him what was the name of the tree. Do you know the name of the tree? See how quick we forget. But they said, but it has to be someone fast. And you know who said they would go? The cheetah said, I'll go. No one can outrun me. So that cheetah took off running through the forest, all by the water, through the woods, just dodging, jumping over the river, off across the mountain, and came right there, smack dab, in front of the king. He said, he was all out of breath. He said, you kind king, can you give me the name of the tree? And the kind king says, I sure will. I don't mind at all. Uwangalima. And he said, thank you. He said it a couple more times. And he started running back over the mountain, through the valleys, through the forest. And when he got to the forest, there were some monkeys up in the tree. And you know how monkeys are. They started throwing mud cakes at him. And he ran and dodged them and tried to chase the monkeys. And he ran a little bit further, and he was so out of breath, he thought he'd stop at the river and get a sip of water. And he drank that water. And when he made his way into the village, they were so happy, they're just waving that the cheetahs made it there. He got there at the base of the tree, and he said, ooh, I know it. Ooh, mooga mooga. Ooh bapa dooba. Oh, no, that's not it. Ooh, chuka chuka. Well, he could not remember the name of that tree. And the lion says, all of that, we have to have someone who will be able to remember it and bring it back. Well, the wise old owl, she stood up. She said, I know that's what you need. You need someone who's not expeditious, but also intelligent. Well, they sent her, and she flew all over the forest, all the valleys, in the woods, over that mountain, and got there to that king and asked for the name of that tree. And the king says, Ooh, Wangalima. Thank you. My predecessor could not remember the name, and I'm going to remember it. Well, she flew back, flying. And as she's flying, by her being so intelligent, she started thinking. She said, what kind of tree could bring that much fruit? I don't think that tree could. And how would the fruit taste? Then she said, you think everybody would like it? She said, I don't know. And then maybe they won't want to eat the same fruit every day. Well, when they saw the owl coming flying in, and she lit on the side, and they asked her, said, what was the name? What was the name? And she said, you tell me I have to wind up. She said, what name? Said, that's what we sent you for. You know, there was a man that told me some name. I can't even figure it out. It was sort of gibberish-like, you know. Nobody would understand that name. And that's the way. They tell me, you know, I got to hang up. I have to stop the story. I have to stop. But with this tree, they sent other people and other people. The one ran into the tree. The rabbit ran into the tree and knocked herself out. And someone was being chased and teased by the monkeys. And then they ran the monkeys. And then all of a sudden, the little turtle said, I'll go. Well, they laughed at the turtle. They said, what? First thing, you're not intelligent, and you're the slowest animal in the forest. Well, before the turtle went to the king, he went to talk to his mother. Got to talk to your mom. And how can I remember the name of this tree? Anything. The mother said, when you go, and that wise king gives you the name, try to remember that you don't know any other word but just that one. Well, it took him some days, and I'm speeding up, but it took him some days with that turtle to get there. And when the king told him, Wangalima, that turtle came back to that forest. And when the crow said, Miss Turtle, where are you going? She said, Wangalima. And the turtle kept crawling. The fish jumped out the water. What is your name? She said, Wangalima. When they saw the turtle coming, she came to the base of that tree, and she says, you remember what she said? Wangalima. Fruit started bearing on that. Story short, because I'm long-winded, from them South Carolina girls. But they learned then that you have to have a purpose. And even though they were faster, some of them were more intelligent, and all of that. But one thing that Miss Turtle had, she had a strong sense of purpose, which is one of the Kwanzaa's principle. Catch me another day, I'll tell you the whole week.
She tells a good story, but she, like the turtle, she tells it the long version of it. So, and I know that you are on a time crunch. First, I'd like to thank our drummer. She has to go back at work. Some of us are not retired. She has to go back to work. So please give her a hand. Miss Adriana Santucci, thank you so much. And if there are some of you who can stay a couple of more minutes, I would like to share one last story with you. But I know you're on schedule too, so understand if you have to leave. Okay. Ooh. The story I would like to share with you is not an original story. When you come to Black Storytelling League's performances, we always remind you to pass the stories on. We always say, pass on your stories, because everybody has a story to tell. The story I would like to share is in memory and honor of Brother Dylan Pritchard, who is an internationally known storyteller who came to Rochester on a couple of occasions and did some storytelling for the Black Storytelling League of Rochester. Recently, he made his transition, and he is now an ancestor. And we attended the National Association of Black Storytelling Conference in Atlanta, Georgia. And a dear sister, also a renowned storyteller, Queen Noor, told her version of Dylan's story. And I would like to share my version of that story with you today. Now, normally I get the youth up for the story. I see just a couple of youth. I don't know how energetic you guys are feeling. So I'll just tell the story and you just kind of help me tell it, all right? Okay, put this down. Thank you. And can you hear me without? Oh, you need the mic for, all right, okay. Time was, in West Africa, there was a young father who was devoted to his wife and dedicated to his 7 children. The father loved his wife's cooking, and he especially loved one thing she fixed for him: yams. He would eat them baked, broiled, roasted, fried, any way she cooked them, any day, any time, he would eat them. The problem that he had was when he went to the village market, they didn't always have yams. So he decided that he would grow his own. Any of you planters, anybody plant and grow their own food? Or, I know people are getting back to that, and we have cooperative community gardens and everything. So this is what the father did. He found the perfect spot where the sun would shine right on this yam. And every day he watered it and watered it and waited for it to grow. He even secretly talked to the plant, and he said, "Grow, yam, grow, grow, yam, grow. I want to reap what I sow." And finally, the yam began to grow, and he saw these great big vines and these beautiful, beautiful green leaves, and he knew he had something special. This yam was going to be gigantic. It was going to be enormous. It was going to be humongous. The day finally came. It was time for him to reap what he sowed. He dug around, grabbed hold, and began to pull. And he began to pull. And he began to pull, but that yam wouldn't budge. He started again, pulled and pulled and pulled, but that yam wouldn't. So he called his wife, honey, come here, honey, I need your help. We got to pull this yam. She said, anything for you, dear. So they began to pull together. And one pulled left, and one pulled right, and one pulled up, and one pulled down, and one pulled fast, and one pulled. but that yam wouldn't. So mama decides to call the oldest child, Umoja. Umoja came and united with his parents, and they began to pull. One pulled left and one pulled right. One pulled up and one pulled down. One pulled fast and one pulled, but that yam wouldn't. Umoja decided to call another sibling, Kujijakalia. Kujijakalia came running with all the self-determination she could muster. She was going to help family. They began to pull, and one pulled one left and one pulled right, and one pulled, and one pulled, and one pulled, and one pulled slow. That yam wouldn't budge. Kujijakalia decided to call the twins, Ujima. Ujima knew all about collective works and responsibilities. And Ujama was thinking, Father grows this gigantic yam. We can feed the whole village. But if he grows another one, we could take it, sell it, others, and we'll have money for the whole village. He was deep in his thoughts and wasn't even paying attention, and they said, Ujama, come on. They began to pull, and one pulled left, and one pulled right, and one pulled up, and one pulled down, and one pulled fast, and one pulled slow. But that yam wouldn't. So they decided to call Nia. Nia stepped up because she understood purpose. And right now, her purpose in life was to help her family get this yam. So they began to pull, and one pulled left, and one pulled right, and one pulled up, and one pulled fast, and one pulled slow. But that yam wouldn't budge. So Nia decided that she would call the next sibling. The next sibling was the creative child, Kuumba. And Kuumba had been watching, but Kuumba was playing on the drum. Father tried, and Mama too. All us children are pulling on you. Father tried, and Mama too. All us children are pulling on you. Kuumba came and joined the crowd. One pulled left, one pulled, one pulled, one pulled, one pulled, one pulled slow. But that yam wouldn't budge. Now, over watching the whole thing was the baby of the family, Imani. But nobody bothered to think that Imani could help because she was little and tiny. So Nyla, will you come up and portray Imani for me, please? Give her a hand.
I can help.
And everybody kind of looked at her. I think you're too little to help.
I know what you forgot to do.
What did we forget to do? And Imani went to tell them. Well, one pulled left, and one pulled right, and one pulled up, and one pulled down, and one pulled fast, and one pulled
slow.
Pulling together is the way to go. And everybody looked at Imani and, whew, this baby got it right. So she said,
right foot stomp. And left foot stomp. And pull.
And that's just what they did. Come on. Right foot stomp. And left foot stomp. And pull. Harambe. Right foot stomp. And left foot stomp. And pull. Harambe. One more time. Right foot stomp. And left foot stomp. And pull. Harambe. And they did that 7 times, just like each of the principals. And after that last 7, Harambe, you know what happened. That yam came up. And the family was happy. They high-fived everybody and fist-pumped each other and hugged because little Imani had taught them a valuable lesson that day. She taught them the lesson that
we are stronger together.
Yes, we are stronger together. Thank you, Sanila. Thank you. So, down through the history of Rochester, people have been practicing the 7 principles of Kwanzaa. When you think of Umoja, I think of Dr. Anderson, Terry Shaka, all of those people that started the Rochester Kwanzaa Coalition. When you come to Kujichagulia, self-determination, I think of Constance Mitchell, Ruth Scott, Ron Good. Those were the first elected officials of color in the city and in the county. When I think of Ujima, collective works and responsibility, I think about the people who started the Fight Organization and ABC, James McCullough, Dr. Walter Cooper, Reverend Florence Franklin, names are escaping me now, but you know who they are, and others. Then when you think about Ujamaa, cooperative economics, I think about Dr. Charles Lunsford, Dr. Levy, Dr. Juanita Pitts, who were doctor, dentist, first African female to open up medical practice in Rochester, and they practiced that cooperative economics because they would serve people who did not have the ability to pay them. Ujamaa, Nia, purpose. I think of somebody like Austin Stewart, the first African-American businessman who had a business not too far, in walking distance from here. Not only was his purpose to open up business to serve others, but he taught people how to read and write. And one of the people that he taught how to read and write was Reverend Thomas James, who became the founder and first pastor of the oldest black church in Rochester, known now as Memorial AME Zion. And that pastor was responsible, partly responsible, for having Frederick Douglass, Anna Murray Douglass, come to the city of Rochester. And we know that they used their Kaumba, creative spirit, in the ways that they were able to help enslaved people seeking freedom get to Canada. And finally, we come to Imani. You know the names of people in your family, in this community, who have kept the faith that we will make a difference. We can make a difference. With that faith, we have faith in our God, in each other, in our communities, and we are going to make a difference and make Rochester and Monroe County and the surrounding area better than what it was. Ashe? Thank you very much. Happy, happy Kwanzaa. Can be celebrated by everyone, can be celebrated by everyone. Happy, happy Kwanzaa. Happy, happy Kwanzaa. The Nguza Saba prides everyone. Nguza Saba guides everyone. Happy, happy Kwanzaa. Can be celebrated by everyone. So clap your hands, stomp your feet, do your dance, sing with me. Happy, happy Kwanzaa. Happy, happy Kwanzaa. Nguza Saba guides everyone. Feel your heart. Focus your eyes. See your dreams. Materialize. Happy, happy Kwanzaa. Can be celebrated by everyone. Can be celebrated by everyone. That is not my original song. I found it on online. I think the originators are Buddy Hull and Cynthia St. James. Thank you all so much. You've been a great audience.
Thank you all for coming, and thank you for celebrating Kwanzaa with us. That was such a great way of sharing the 7 principles that made sense to all of us for all ages. And again, thank you for bringing the rich history that not just about Kwanzaa, but the history of Rochester and the many pioneers that have paved the way for all of us to still be here today. So thank you, and thank you again, County Executive, for allowing us to have this celebration. And thank you for everyone who came. And have a great day. Feel free to help yourself. We have some red velvet cake if you would like, which is one of the traditions of Kwanzaa. So thank you and have a great day.